See, everyone has heard of Operation Paperclip because it's been a little bit more well advertised, in which some top Nazis were found to live out in Uruguay, and through the Vatican rat line and through the American government, many Nazis were allowed to even come to America, North America. Werner von Braun would be an example, but there's many others. So that's been official history. But what has not been official history is how many Nazis escaped to the east, right? Into Egypt, into Turkey particularly, and other countries as well. This has been played down, and you won't find much information on it anywhere. It's been whistleblown in certain movies and in other areas. Now, this was a merger between Islam and Islam and fascism, so to speak. Once you know, you still have to decode what fascism is. It's a form of socialism. So this was a beautiful marriage made in hell between Nazism and Islam. But even before that, before the Nazis went out there, and these were Oriental scholars, these were people who spoke fluent Arabic, these German Nazis, right, had a great love of Islam, had studied Islam, had studied Sufism. It's all been, none of this has been told to you by anybody because the British intelligence, there's been a lot of forces have covered this up. But even before this, let's go back to say, for instance, even World War I. Did you know that the Ottoman Empire, this great Muslim empire, was in collusion with the Germany of the Kaiser? They were allies. Now, it would take too long to explain why they were allies, right? It was a mutual benefit. But also, the Ottoman Empire was reaching out because it was in a state of decline. Massive, bloated monster. It was called the sick man of Europe, the Ottoman Empire, Turkish Empire, Muslim. They had been fighting with the Arabs. One of the great wars that you don't know about is between Turks and Arabs. See, anything to do with true Islam has been hidden from you because you're not meant to know how barbaric these groups were, how old their feuding was, both in India and in other areas too, but this one that I'm speaking of right now, the ancient animosity between Turkish Muslims and Arab Muslims. You're not meant to know anything about that. This is before the discovery of oil. And then when the oil was discovered, the geopolitical system changed. And this is where a lot of things happened that brought Israel into the plan, and why Lord Balfour signed the Balfour Declaration to give Israel its homeland back. There's a lot of things that we could get into here. But just this original moment, around about the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the leaders of the Ottoman Empire became socialists. Now, remember, this is World War I. This is before Nazism. So you have two waves. And during the fall of the Ottoman Empire, out of the 5, what they call portes, right, leaders of the Ottoman Empire, 3 of them, when they were dethroned, ran to Russia, ran to the arms of the communists, which was the Tsar had fallen, and the communists had taken over. And in the aftermath of that, 3 of the leaders of the Ottoman Islamic Empire ran and found succor, right, in the hands of the communists. And there's many other reasons why this was happening. Now, this is all confirmed when you look up 2 words. One is Pan-Arabic Movement. Just look it up online. And the other one is Pan-Turkic, or Young Turks. The original Young Turks. Pan-Arabic Movement and the Young Turks. Now, the Young Turks were part of the mass socialistic movement that, around the turn of the century had spread to Ireland, to Germany, to France, to Italy, all over the world. They called it the Young Movement. It's a bunch of rebellion. rebellious, highly communistic, and very anarchic and violent people. Now, this is the roots of the Democratic Party. This would all be changed. They wouldn't call themselves these names anymore, right? But this force transmigrated into America, had its sights set on America. The Giuseppe Mazzini and many other people, the Antonio Gramsci's and other people we could mention. It's a very long story. So the Ottoman Empire was Muslim, right? Then, after that, turning left wing, comes the 1945 period and the Second World War. And in the aftermath of that, because of this socialism that had been in Islam fomenting, the Nazis had created second homes in Arabia, in Egypt, and so on. And so not just Operation Paperclip where Nazis headed west. That's only part of the story. Nazis also headed east. And this is how you get a collusion between socialism and Islam, and they obviously have the same agenda. Even a novice could tell you, well, I can see why they'd be together, is because they both hate the West. The Germans who lost the war were ardent socialists, the Nazis, and they still have a beef against the West. And the Islamic, well, they've had a beef for 1400 years. So the meeting of this marriage, in hell, although it was stumped and it didn't like the forming of Israel being given to Jews, this also then was a thorn in their side, you see. And at the time of the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan couldn't find anybody to help them financially, the debt. He needed to borrow money. And at that time, Germany, who was always in conflict with Britain and Russia, realized that this Turkish Empire could be an ally. And this is how this started. So they lent money to the Sultan to keep his bloated, rotten, depraved empire going. That's why even to this day, Germany is full of Turks. Right? Turks are the greatest migrants into Germany. It's because of this old collusion that most people don't know anything about. They've been allies for a long time. But then, when the money was starting to run out again, as Germany started to lose the First World War, this is when the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire sold off the land of Palestine to the Jews. And they bought it. It was a transaction. There was no occupation. There was no invasion. But a point came where the Sultan finally, after centuries and centuries of petition, decided, yeah, I'll sell it. And he did. And he made the farmers of Palestine sell the land. They hiked the prices 8 times the worth for swampy, rotten land. And the Jews still paid the price. So there's no all that stuff you've heard about oppression and invasion and occupation is lies from inside out and upside down. And the greatest scholars will confirm this. The greatest scholars. It is not negotiable. The Jews paid the hiked prices and made of that land what it is. But it's only democracy out there, you see. And it was a thorn in the side of Nasser in Egypt and the Jordans and the Palestinians and all the rest of it. So this is a little bit of a window into the true history of the whole thing. But then, of course, whereas the Ottoman Empire went bankrupt, oil was discovered in Arabia. So the pan-Arabic movement, the communist, fascist cabals and consortiums that were over there were now bankrolled to the tune of billions. That's how we get to where we are today. Without the oil, this was a failing, infighting, inbred, and decaying empire right across the board. You never would have heard of it. There would have been nothing. We would not be having a problem with Islam today. It just wouldn't exist in anything like, the way it does now. In lands where the oil was not discovered, like Pakistan. Look at the nightmare of it. Primitive, back in the medieval days. Can't even dig a well. You get the Taliban, right? You get that. No. Because oil was found in Arabia, it bankrolled Islam, yes, but it also bankrolled this particular strain of communistic, fascistic Islam, which now was mobilized. So it became a geopolitical force that we're now having to deal with.